Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid, but it is the 2nd of August 2022. These are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the CIA drone strike that has killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. That has been stated by the American President Joe Biden on Monday. Now, Zawahiri had quite an impressive bounty on him as well. And as per the reports, he had helped coordinate the September 11, 2001 attacks that killed nearly 3,000 people. We'll be looking at the different aspects of this drone strike and how this is going to impact security-related relations between the US and Afghanistan and also the internal situation within Afghanistan. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, will concern the rains and the monsoon-related situation as far as different parts of the country, including Balochistan, is concerned. We all know that Balochistan has been the worst affected province as far as Pakistan is concerned. Our premier is there. He was also not very happy at all with the way things were functioning, and a certain number of officials had also been suspended as a result of that. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also 7 people have died in a roof collapse. There have been drowning incidents. Rains are causing havoc. What needs to be done? What should be the strategy? This is going to be our second segment. Then we will be discussing the unfortunate and the very sad news of the martyrdom of the 6 army officers that happened, of course, also related to these rains. They were there to supervise the relief operation given to the people of Balochistan, and as a result of a helicopter crash, Lieutenant General Sir Faraz Ali, Brigadier Amjad Hanif, Brigadier Muhammad Khalid, Major Saeed Ahmed, Major Muhammad Talha Manan, and Naik Mudassar Fayaz have been martyred. And of course, our deepest condolences to the families of these 6 Jawans, of these 6 brave people of the Pakistan Army, of these brave officers of the Pakistan Army. This is going to be our third story. Then we are going to discuss, ladies and gentlemen, a bill that criminalized custodial torture has been passed in the National Assembly. This is the Torture and Custodial Death Prevention and Punishment Bill 2022. This has been finally been passed by the National Assembly. We'll be talking about the different aspects of this bill and how important is it for human rights as well. And finally, we'll be talking about Chief of the Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa, who yesterday said the People's Liberation Army of China and the Pakistan Army were brothers in arms, and their relationship will contribute and continue to contribute towards safeguarding the collective interests of both Pakistan and the People's Republic of China. He was talking at a ceremony that was marking the 95th anniversary of the founding of the PLA at the GHQ in Rawalpindi. This is our last story. Let's come and start discussing our first segment, a very important as far as the events that started from 9/11 and have now come to another point now when Ayman al-Zawahiri, who has been killed in a US strike on Afghanistan over the weekend. This has been stated by American President Joe Biden. There have been different statements on it. We'll be talking about the past of Mrs. Zawahiri as well as the impact it's going to have in the region. More in the following report.
After the hasty withdrawal of US and NATO forces from Afghanistan and the Taliban takeover of power in August 2021, instability and conflict gripped the war-ravaged country. The security of Afghanistan still continues to pose glaring challenge to regional and international stakeholders. In a dramatic development, US President Joe Biden announced that Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri has been killed in a CIA drone strike in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri, who has been killed in a US drone strike in Afghanistan, was the group's key ideologue and strategist. The president said in an evening address from the White House that the US intelligence officials tracked al-Zawahiri to a home in downtown Kabul, where he was hiding out with his family. A Taliban spokesman described the US operation as a clear violation of international principles, but did not mention slain Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. Such actions are a repetition of the failed experiences of the past 20 years and are against the interests of the United States of America, Afghanistan, and the region, according to Taliban spokesman. The operation is hailed in global media as a significant counterterrorism win for the Biden administration, just 11 months after American troops left the country after a 2-decade war.
Now, as far as the details that emanate from the United States of America, Al-Qaeda leader Zawahiri has been killed in a US drone strike In Kabul, in Afghanistan, US President Joe Biden announced the killing of the Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri, who he says is the alleged planner of the 9/11 attacks. He said the strike was carried out in Kabul, in Afghanistan last Saturday over the weekend, and he also added that there were no civilian casualties and that justice had been delivered. I will quote Joe Biden. He said justice has been delivered and this terrorist leader is no more. It was also confirmed as far as the US sources say that of course this target was Zawahiri and he was indeed killed as far as the drone strike is concerned. As far as Afghanistan's reaction is concerned, there is no official reaction as to whether Zawahiri was the target, he was killed or not. There is just a mention of a drone strike that happened in Kabul. Nevertheless, the international leaders are rejoicing in the wake of the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri, because of course, as per the West, he was one of the masterminds behind the 9/11 attacks. Hassan Khan, who's a foreign affairs expert, joins us online. Hassan, thank you very much to have joined us. Hassan, Ayman al-Zawahiri, a very important personality as far as the US is concerned and terrorist attacks are concerned as per the West. His killing, as declared by the US President Joe Biden in a drone attack, which kind of and what kind of repercussions in your point of view is it going to have on the regional as well as international politics?
Thank you very much. I think Ayman al-Zawahiri, he was the commander of Al-Qaeda. In his killing, it is a big cage for the US administration at the moment. And I think the US administration is juxtaposing it with the killing of Osama bin Laden, who was killed in May 2011 in the Pakistani city Abbottabad. Definitely, I think Ayman al-Zawahiri, he was killed in a posh locality in Kabul. And you know it well that in an agreement with the Taliban, the US administration has taken this promise from the Taliban leadership that they will not allow any terrorist group to have safe havens in Afghanistan. One. Two, Taliban agreed that they will sever their relationship with any terrorist syndicate, including Al-Qaeda. But I think the case of Ayman al-Zawahiri, from a posh locality in Kabul, it means that Taliban have not fulfilled that promise and that they allowed a leader of a terrorist syndicate to stay in the middle of the city. So I think definitely it will have repercussion first for Afghanistan, and it will be very unfortunate if the US resort to its old strong arm tactics. But I think besides that, Ayman al-Zawahiri, he was a 70-plus-year-old man. I think he was not that much active. Now, definitely he will be replaced by another leader.
But of course, he was a very important figure as far as 9/11 is concerned, as far as what the West describes terrorism in the West is concerned. So for the West, it's a huge victory, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That is what I have said, that Ayman al-Zawahiri, for the US administration and its allies, it's a big victory. But I'm talking of the repercussion which the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri will definitely have, not only in the region, particularly for Afghanistan, because as I say, Taliban are renegading. They are not fulfilling the promises which they made in Doha Agreement. And one of the promises was that they will sever their relationship with the terrorist organization, including Al-Qaeda. They will not allow the territory of Afghanistan to be used against any other country. So I think giving a space, they are letting a terrorist, number one, to have a house living with a family in Kabul. So definitely it will have bad repercussion on the Taliban future relationship with the countries. And definitely the US will also demand the regional players, its regional allies in the Afghan conflict, particularly Pakistan, to play. Taliban have not, I think they didn't have that which they agreed over what we call it, a government which is all-inclusive government. Taliban, I think, didn't fulfill their promise. One. Two, Taliban failed to secure the territory of Afghanistan to be used against any country. And we have here the TTP, which is using the Afghan territory against Pakistan. Now, the death of Ayman al-Zawahiri in a post locality in Kabul, it confirmed that the international terror syndicate leadership is also inside Afghanistan. Either Taliban are facilitating them to live there, definitely, because if you are living in Kabul without the consent of Taliban, nobody will accept it. So definitely, it will have very bad repercussions not only for Afghanistan, but definitely for the region, because the new man who will be replacing, most probably it is his name is Saif al-Adil. He is known to be a very ferocious person. He is known to be, I think he has always eluded the attention, the arrest by the international security agencies. So that's what I am saying. The repercussions for Afghanistan, for the region, and for the future of Al-Qaeda, I think that will be very huge.
All right. Now, what happens to the Doha agreement now? Is it considered null and void? Because as per the West, Afghanistan has not, remained true to this agreement. B, I'd like to also refer you to a report, the 30th report of the Analytics Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team under the UNSC resolutions 1526 and 2253 that has looked at the activities of Al-Qaeda, IS and other terrorist groups in Afghanistan, and says that these groups are present and very much functioning within the country. I'd like your point of view on all of these, on both of these comments and both of these important points. The Doha agreement and this report.
But as I said earlier, Taliban failed to fulfill their commitment made in Doha agreement with the international community, particularly with the United States of America. As I said first, they didn't form all-inclusive government, which they promised that once they are in Kabul, they will include all the ethnic, political, and religious communities in forming a government. So far, this is an exclusive government, as the current regime of Taliban is completely exclusive. It doesn't have the members from other political communities or other school of thought. One. Two, they fail to fulfill the promise of letting the women or the minority have equal rights. Since they took over, since the fall of Kabul, women education is banned in Afghanistan. And three, they promised that the Afghan territory will not be allowed to be used by any terrorist network. First, as I said earlier, the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, they were using the Afghan territory against Pakistan, and still they are there in Afghanistan. And I think Pakistan's policy of chasing them inside the Afghan territory when Pakistani planes targeted their hideouts and hosts across the border. And three, most important is letting the Al-Qaeda leadership. They also promised in Doha agreement that they will not only not allow the Afghan territory to be used by the terrorist network against any other country. Two, they will sever their relationship with the terror syndicate, including Al-Qaeda. So, as you mentioned, that the recent report where the international terror networks are still operating in Afghanistan. The top of that is ISKP and then Al-Qaeda. But the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri proved that, beyond any doubt, that Taliban's are in hand in glove with these terrorist network, because Ayman al-Zawahiri came to Kabul. He was given a house in a posh locality. He was enjoying his life with his family there. So I think Taliban, so far, they haven't fulfilled a single, what we call it, commitment, which they made in Doha agreement. And definitely, it will further make life for Taliban, I think, difficult, especially interacting with the international community, including the regional countries. So as I said, the death of Ayman al-Zawahiri, who was targeted by the U.S. Drone Hellfire missiles, and I think they very calculatedly done it. And as per the reports, they were following the activities of Ayman al-Zawahiri inside Kabul for the last few months. So it means that the U.S. has confirmed that Ayman al-Zawahiri is not only living in Kabul, but he is living in Kabul with the permission or with the connivance of Taliban leadership. So definitely, I think further for Taliban to interact with the international community, Taliban will face a very tough time, because Pakistan has already taken its issue of the TTP, which was using the Afghan territory against Pakistan. Now the international community, particularly the United States, will tell Afghan Taliban that they are allowing the international terror syndicate who targeted the US installation back in 2001. Now the leadership of that organization are living in Kabul. So definitely the what we call it, the soldiers of that terror network will definitely have the same heavens which their leadership are enjoying there.
All right, now we understand the whole repercussions of it all. Do you foresee sanctions against Afghanistan? And if so, under the current prevailing situation where there's already an economic and humanitarian crisis engulfing the country, what kind of effect will it have on the country's already worsening situation?
I think, unfortunately, Afghanistan is already under severe sanction from the US, and even the regional countries could not, I think, they can, what we call it, do business with Afghanistan. This behavior of Afghan Taliban, who are currently the rulers of Afghanistan, I think it will further make the lives of the ordinary Afghan miserable. Taliban are enjoying their own, what we call it, the government, and they are well settled. They are trying to place their own people in different positions. But for the ordinary Afghans are concerned, who are almost 40 million Afghan, they are facing severe hardship, particularly food shortage, health problems, security problems, and especially the not allowing the women to get education in Afghanistan. So I think already the people of Afghanistan in a miserable situation. But for the international community, the catch-22 situation is if they further pressure the Afghan Taliban. So I think the impact will be on the ordinary Afghans. So that's the problem. Whether you are further sanctioning Afghan Taliban, whether you are further punishing the Afghan Taliban.
The ultimate victim is the normal person or the civilian of Afghanistan. Hassan Saab, I was just saying that the ultimate victim of it all becomes the civilian in Afghanistan, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I am saying. Yes, the ultimate victims so far, even today, the ordinary Afghans are the victim. The ordinary Afghan women are the victim. The children are the victim. So I think the Taliban so far, they are not taking any responsibility for governance. They are not taking any responsibility for the floods, the losses or the damages done by the floods, done by the earthquakes, the people who are suffering due to health problems, the people who are suffering due to food shortages, are the people who are suffering due to security issues. Taliban are putting all these things in the hands of God. They say this is God's responsibility to feed the people. This is God's responsibility to heal the people. And this is God's responsibility to give life to the people. This is what their narrative is, unfortunately. On the other side, the international community are trying to deal with the Afghan Taliban in a way they are dealing with any other religiously extremist group. So that's what I am saying. The problem is that that's what I said, that it is a catch-22 situation. You are punishing the Afghan Taliban, but you are further punishing the ordinary people of Afghanistan. So the international community, and particularly the regional countries, like Pakistan is a country which is facing the major brunt of the Afghan conflict. At the moment, Pakistan has opened its door to the Afghan people. No other country is allowing, even the West, even the US, they have stopped issuing visa to the poor Afghans. And this is their responsibility, because for 20 years, it was the West and the US who were engaged, and they used all sort of weaponries on the Afghan side. They are responsible for the destruction of Afghanistan. They are responsible for the 20-year losses, failures of Afghan state. But today, they have locked the door and they went away without understanding the problems and the miseries of the poor Afghan. So, at the moment, it's only Pakistan which has opened its door. The rest of the 6 other neighbors, the traffic of Afghan people, the reliefs being provided to the Afghan people, the corridor is only Pakistan. It's very unfortunate. So I think the West and the US has to realize it. If they are punishing the Afghan Taliban, they avoid punishing the Afghan people. So that's where I said the Catch-22
I
situation
think
is
it's something that
international
needs to be
community.
treaded. I mean, they need to tread this line very carefully. The West, the US, or the allies need to tread this very carefully, so that there is an extreme minimization of the loss of Afghan lives, wherein at the same time they could, as they have targeted Ayman al-Zawahiri, I'm sure there must be other people, other such extremist leaders who are on the target of the US as well. Which brings me to the regional countries. You were talking of regional countries including Pakistan. Do you feel that the US and the allies are also going to exert some kind of pressure on Pakistan, on India, on other regional countries with which the Afghan Taliban are trying to forge a closer link, to also be very wary, or maybe try to sanction the Afghan Taliban directly or indirectly through the regional countries? What's your take on that as well?
I think the problem for the regional countries, particularly Pakistan, Iran, and the Central Asian state, is that if the situation deteriorates further in Afghanistan, if God forbid, if it again descends into chaos, so I think we will be facing the major brunt. So for Pakistan, for Iran, sorry, and for the other neighboring countries, the problem is that if you punish further Taliban, if the US and the West are punishing Taliban further, so definitely the impact will be on the ordinary Afghan. So God forbid, if there is a second uprising, if there is a third uprising in Afghanistan, if there is again initiation of another conflict in Afghanistan, so there will be an extreme chaos. The reason is, unfortunately, Afghanistan do not have a permanent administration, the permanent skeleton, which can afford. So once a ruler in Kabul change in Afghanistan, so everything from the what we call it, the Patwari, up to the secretaries, everything changed. Even the military is changed. So no doubt the US and the West will try to pressure Pakistan to build pressure on Afghan Taliban. Either they will also ask India, they will also engage Iran to engage. So far, Pakistan, India, Iran, and the Central Asian countries, particularly the Russia, the China, they are engaged with Afghan Taliban at the moment. But how to get something out of Afghan Taliban, I think it's too difficult. The reason is Afghan Taliban have this psyche that what we call it, a type of an arrogance, that they have defeated the international superpower. So they have taken Afghanistan by use of sword, by use of force, and now this is their birthright now to deal with Afghanistan, to have their own system the way they like it, whether you like it or not. Whether the Islamic system which Afghan Taliban want in Afghanistan, whether the rest of the 40-45 Islamic countries do not agree, Taliban doesn't have any problem, do not have any problem with that. Taliban have banned the girl education. The rest of the entire world is pressuring them to let women study in schools and colleges, but they say this is our own culture, this is our own way, we will decide according to our own ways and means and cultures and values, etc. So I think the problem is the stubbornness of Afghan Taliban, the way they are rejecting the ideas, the demands, and dealing with the international community. And the only reason for that, please allow me to say it again, is that Taliban have this belief, they are telling the world that giving life to the people, it is the God's responsibility. Giving food to the people, it's the God's responsibility. Giving life to the people, it's the God's responsibility. So for what the hell you are there to govern the Kabul fighting? Nobody is asking them. So this is their belief system. This is their local cultural values which they are imposing on the entire Afghanistan. How can Taliban will be pressured to change their value, to change their behavior, to change their policies? I think this is a multi-million-dollar question, not only for Pakistan, India, Iran.
I totally agree with you, Hassan Khan Sahib. It's a multi-million-dollar question on where all of this is going and what will be the eventual results in the coming weeks, in the coming months, as far as Afghanistan itself, internally or externally, is concerned. Nevertheless, it's a very precarious situation, and all eyes are now on Afghanistan, on the way Ayman al-Zawahiri was killed, and the fact that he was present within Kabul raises a lot of question marks as far as that, and the report that has been released very recently about the presence of the different factions within Afghanistan as well. Thank you very much, Hassan Khan Sahib, to have joined us. It was a very important discussion and you were part of it as usual, being an excellent guest. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns rains, monsoons that have wreaked havoc within Pakistan, especially in Balochistan. We've got Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we've got Sindh as well, Punjab as well, that have been affected, but the most affected region has been Balochistan. The Prime Minister has been there, has been visiting different areas as well, has also distributed checks amongst some of the victims. Nevertheless, the situation is also very wary. More in the following report.
The monsoon season has been exceptionally challenging for Pakistan as climate change has worsened frequency and intensity of rains. Torrential rains and flash floods continue to play havoc in different parts of the country, especially in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif reached Quetta on a day-long visit to oversee relief operations in the flood-affected areas of Balochistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif reiterated his commitment to addressing the damages the floods have caused in Balochistan as he appealed to the nation to step forward and help our suffering brothers and sisters. Prime Minister Sharif appealed to the local and international organizations to assist the government in helping the flood-stricken people and directed the authorities concerned to pay compensation money to all the victims within 24 hours. Meanwhile, the monsoon rains in most parts of Balochistan and KP have shown no signs of slowing down as floods continue their assault unabated, leaving many dead while battering homes and toppling trees. The rainfall has overwhelmed rivers and sewer systems, submerging low-lying areas and blocking main routes. Pakistan has long ranked among the most climate-vulnerable countries in the world, according to the Global Climate Risk Index, which tracks the devastating human and economic toll of extreme weather events.
We've been joined by Dr. Sohail Yousaf. He is the Chairman, Department of Environmental Sciences at the Quaid-e-Azam University. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, with rains wreaking havoc across all of Pakistan and of course the government trying its level best to give relief to the people, what is the need of the hour?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. I think we need to make the policies before we face the devastation or disasters which we are facing now. We know that the temperature in Pakistan, the overall temperature in the world is increasing, and Pakistan is one of the top 10 countries which will be affected with this climate change. So we need to make the policies before time. Actually, we are now in trouble. These disasters or the effects of the climate change are on our doorstep. So we should have made the policies, but still we need to make the policies, because at the moment we need actually two-pronged strategy. One is adaptation. Adaptation is that we are facing the floods, we are facing the weather extremes, and we need to adapt them somehow. Like the government is trying, the people are trying, and we need to do a lot in this sector as well. That rehabilitation, rescue of the people who are in the affected area, mostly in Balochistan, in GB, and in many parts of Sindh and Punjab.
Jammu and Kashmir, Sindh, Punjab, I mean, you name it, every single province is somehow directly or indirectly, affected by this, but Balochistan most of all, and then now we also hear of Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. This said, whose responsibility, in your point of view, is the foremost as far as the prevention of any such incidents from happening? I mean, what I mean to say is the devastation of lives, the devastation of infrastructure and crops.
Well, actually, this is a natural disaster, and we know that the climate change is happening due to human activities. Due to greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, our temperatures of the earth is increasing. Though the contribution of Pakistan is less than 1%, but this is a global phenomenon. So you cannot say that other countries are doing, I am not doing, I will be safer. But actually, due to our geological region of Pakistan, in the region in which it is situated, and due to our socio-economic condition, we are 10th most vulnerable country. So vulnerability comes from our economic situation. So since our economy is not strong, so that's why we are more vulnerable. So responsibility cannot be fixed on anyone, but I think that the government comes the first. So they have to take the responsibility, because policies has to be made by the government and implemented, and then we need to educate the people as well. So first responsibility is of the government, and then maybe we can go for public partner, private public partnership as well. But the major role is of the government, that we need to make the policies. We need to have the warning systems like this. The floods which we are facing in Pakistan nowadays, they are due to a La Nina condition. So La Nina it occurs every 4 to 5 years in the Pacific Ocean. So it brings more rains in some countries, and it brings dry seasons in some countries. But
True.
Pakistan is in those countries which will receive more rains, because we have more the wetter. The wet air from the sea is actually pushed towards Pakistan, India, and we see this, that India is also facing floods, Pakistan is facing floods. So this can be predicted one year before, but we need to have a system which issues the warnings to the people that in next year we will have this much rains in monsoon, or then we can
But
maybe
Dr.
we can
Saab, this
plan.
brings a very interesting question to mind, and that is, you tell me, that we have to tell the people, forewarn the people that next year there is going to be more rains in your area due to X or Y reasons. You talked about El Nino as one of the major reasons that affects climate change as well. This said, do you feel people are ready to relocate themselves from areas where they've been there for many generations, where their crops have been present and all? And if so, what should be the alternate mechanism by the provincial governments in place? Because this is not going to happen overnight, Dr. Saab, to be very frank. And now that the Met Department has also forecast heavy rains for the month of August, what should be the priority?
So I think the migration is very difficult. Is to leave your home, your land is very difficult. So what I expect is that when we inform the people beforehand, they may be temporarily migrated and then they move back. But for that, of course, government or some the private have to come forward and assist the people in easy migration, maybe during that season. Or they can, other on the other side, when we know that after 1 year this will happen and after 10 years this is going to happen, we make the policies. Actually, what I call it, that we should make some dams. We may call them flood dams. So when we have excessive water, it should be stored. Actually, we are wasting a lot of water. So policies cannot be made, in one day or for one day. We should
True,
have
I agree
policies
with you on
at
that.
least for 3, 4 decades. That in 20 years, 30 years, this is our focus. For example, Balochistan is suffering from floods nowadays, and I tell you that now 18 of the 26 districts are in floods, but Balochistan is the province that is most affected by the drought in Pakistan from the last 15 years. So drought is the condition that there are no rains. The people are, then praying and crying for the water, and now we are
Have
drowning
an
in the
excess
water.
of water in the form of
This
floods.
shows the contradiction in our policies, that we don't have, storage dam, water storage dam. We should have policies. We do not make any electricity, we don't do anything, but at least let's store the water. Not only in Balochistan, in all the country, we should have dams for at least to store the
But
flood
Dr.
water.
Saab, this is something that is going to happen in due time. It's not going to happen overnight. You yourself said that. It's not going to happen in a few weeks' time as well. We can do maybe some kind of measure for next year or for the years after. But what about now, right now? What should be the priority? What needs to be the measures taken? Because now that the rains are also going to restart, what needs to be done on the provincial level, on the national level, on the community level?
Yes, I think all have to join the hand together. So first priority should be the rescue operation, which is already going on, but we all need to put our resources into that. We should help the government, provincial or to the federal government. We all should join hands together, so that the rescue of the people who are affected or who are in living in those areas, there could be. And the next phase would be the rehabilitation of those people. So this should be the priority. All the resources should be focused towards the rehabilitation and rescue operation. At the moment, there is nothing that we cannot stop rains. At the moment, we cannot build the dams, like you said, that it cannot be done in the one night. So now the rescue, the safety of the people, their holdings, their animals. This should be the priority. Then rehabilitation, and then of course after the flood, the government has to support the people. They will lose their crops, they
And
will
I think we
lose their.
also need to have veterinary doctors on the spot so as to help these animals that have been affected by it, because a lot of people in Balochistan and other provinces also are using these animals as part of their earning, their living as well. So that is also, I think, very important in the coming days as well, with the rains that are going to affect these regions as well. You talked about the water reservoirs, you talked about dams. What is the easiest to make in the coming weeks? Do you feel water reservoirs are an easier option, or small dams are the better option?
I think small dams in all the districts we are facing these floods. We should make the small dam, the reservoirs, whatever is feasible. This should be done. There should be a study, the feasibility report, and then we can make which area is suitable for storage of water. So this should be the part of civil engineers and agriculture engineering. Maybe they can play their role, but we have to focus on this as well, that we are facing it. For example, I tell you that Pakistan annually we waste 29 million acre feet of water. So 1 million acre feet is equal to $1 billion. So it means we are wasting. This water is flowing to the Arabian Sea, the wastage. So we are wasting
We need
every
to
year
create
20
storages
billion
where
water.
this water could be taken in for Pakistan and not go into the Arabian Sea. This is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, yes, yes. If we can save the water, this will be available the whole year for our agriculture. 1 million acre of feet of water can water 400,000 acres of land. So we can imagine that we are agriculture country. So our backbone is agriculture. But we are, on the other hand, we are a stressed country, and we are touching to the water scarcity. And it is estimated that from 2025 till
Yes, of
2030
course.
will be water
Pakistan is
scarce
one of the
country.
countries that is most vulnerable as far as water
Most,
scarcity is
on the
concerned.
other hand, we are wasting the water, and the floods, they are not only damage, the agriculture or your houses. They are also source of contamination. All the contamination, pesticides, you name anything, fertilizers, pesticides, fossil fuels, chemicals. They all are now being, blown away with the water, and they are going to our rivers, our streams, in our fields, and then they will end up in the ocean. So the floods, they have multi-dimensional and devastating effects on the human, on our ecosystem, on our environment.
Now, see, speaking of our ecosystem and our environment, and with respect to, of course, agriculture, is there some kind of a way that we could plant seeds or crops that could withstand floods? Is that possible?
Plantation, the forest, the trees, they will definitely reduce the flooding. For example, when Pakistan came into being, we had 25 to 30% the forest on our land, and now it has been reduced to 3 to 4%. So most of the when we are cutting the trees, especially in the catchment areas, we are cutting the trees, and then it means we are inviting the floods. So trees, we need to grow the trees. We need to have a lot of vegetation. Everyone need to plant the tree in the cities, in their homes, in their villages, and especially in the water catchment areas or in the watershed areas. And secondly, the most important is that there are flood plains. They used to be flood plains. Now they have been encroached. We have housing colonies. The people have filled them, and when we have a lot rainwater, then the water has to flow, because we have closed its ways, and now it is entering our homes and our cities. So we need to go back. We need to think that what we have done. I visited northern areas in last month in Kumrat. I tell you, there are lot of forests, lot of trees. The people are cutting the trees, and I just asked to a local that you are cutting the trees, but do you ask a permission from someone, or there is an authority? And he said, no, we don't have any authority. We cut any tree we want because we need it for warming our house, for burning. So yes, the people need it. So what we need to do is the government needs to provide them electricity,
And
the
also
gas.
educate them. I think education, proper education to the people is also very important, to let them understand or make them understand that, you know, cutting trees is not the viable option. There needs to be alternative mechanisms. So as far you talked about, you know, heating of the houses or other important mechanisms for which they are, you know, using these trees. There could be alternative ways and means so that this also could be achieved for the people. This said, in the next couple of years, of course, we understand that climate change and Pakistan are interlinked, and Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries, you yourself said, in the top 10. Is it going to get worse when it comes to these rains, these floods that we are witnessing this year? Do you feel that the coming years are going to show a worsening trend as far as the same situation that we've witnessed this year is concerned?
Yes, this pattern would continue because, as we know, the temperature of the globe is rising. So now it's around, in Pakistan, the average rise is 1 centimeter. This is more. This is much more, and we expect is rising because there is no control on greenhouse gas emissions in the world. Though the people are doing, but practically it is not happening. So we have to live with it. We know that our glaciers are melting, and it is Pakistan hosts more than 7,000 glaciers, and we have it is reported that 30 lakes, they are at the edge of glacial outbursts. So they will bring the floods. So we will see this happening more and more. As the temperature will rise, we will have more evaporation. We will have more rains, and we will. It does not mean, actually, the problem is that the rains are good for us. But if they are happening at regular intervals and in the quantity we need, we are having extreme weather pattern. From March till June, we have a drier period. Actually, we had the higher temperature. Average temperature of the months of March and May was 4 centigrade average in the last 60 years. So there are no rains, and now we have extreme, rains and heavy rains, and this pattern is dangerous. So we need to have policies. We need to make the policies to adapt this change, and this is going to happen in future. And this will
So adaptation as far as policy making is concerned, as far as implementation of these policies are concerned, is paramount as far as what you were saying. Thank you very much, Dr. Sohail Yousaf, Chairman, Department of Environmental Sciences at the Qaeda University, talking to us about the monsoon rains, the havoc that has wreaked across Pakistan, now also in Gilgit-Baltistan, in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We are witnessing that the government is doing its utmost in Balochistan. We have the Premier who's there as well, and there have been strict measures that have been taken on those who are not following the rules and regulations and not helping the people as they should, because there were a lot of queries by the people, a lot of questions raised as to the tents, as to the presence of people in the tents, and so on and so forth. The Senate also has showed support to the flood hit people. They have, of course, passed a unanimous resolution for their unanimous opinion with the people, expressing solidarity with the people of Balochistan and other calamity hit areas is concerned, hoping for the best, because of course the rains haven't ended, and we'll of course be updating you as and when new policies come into effect and what the government is doing in that measure as well. Let's come to our last three stories. The first is a very, very sad event, of course, that has happened. The wreckage of the Pakistan Army helicopter that had went missing in Balochistan last night has been found near Musa Got in the Lasbela district. This was officially announced by the ISPR. As a result, the ISPR also announced the shahadat, the martyrdom of 6 of the army officers that were present in that helicopter. That included Lieutenant General Sarfaraz Ali, Brigadier Amjad Hanif, Brigadier Muhammad Khalid, Major Saeed Ahmed, Major Muhammad Talha Manan, Naik Mudassar Fayaz. There have been condolences pouring in from all the different quarters, whether it be the President, the Prime Minister, the opposition, the government, different ministers as well. We all are one when it comes to condoling with the bereaved families, and of course we hope that the families of course bear this huge loss with fortitude. Nevertheless, our hearts and our minds are with the families, are also with all those who are there 24/7 helping our people in these calamity hit areas, because this helicopter was also there to help those flood ridden people who had been affected by the rains and the floods as well. A very, very sad news indeed. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Our next story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns a bill that is, of course, known as the National Assembly, which passed this bill on Monday, that suggests severe punishment for public office holders who have been found responsible for death of suspects in custody. This bill is called Custodial Death Prevention and Punishment Bill 2022. It was presented by the Minister of State for Interior, Abdul Rahman Kanju. As far as this bill is concerned, it aims at protecting a person during custody from all acts of torture perpetrated by public officials. It says that all statements, information and confession to be obtained by public official as a result of torture, inhuman and degrading treatment will not be acceptable as evidence in the court of law, and no action could be initiated against the victim. Also, the guilty public office holder would face 1 year imprisonment or a fine of 100,000 rupees, or both. In case the person dies in custody, the official responsible for it will be given the same punishment as prescribed under section 302 of the Pakistan Penal Code. The offence will be non-bailable. There will be no provision of reconciliation. A very good bill indeed as far as human rights are concerned, and all the human rights organizations in Pakistan and abroad are rejoicing at the passing of this law. And finally, let's come to Chief of the Army Staff, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, who yesterday at a function said that the People's Liberation Army of China and the Pakistan Army were brothers in arms, and that their relationship will continue to contribute towards safeguarding the collective interests of both these important institutions. He was, of course, talking at a ceremony to mark the 95th anniversary of the founding of the People's Liberation Army that was held at the general headquarters in Rawalpindi. It was also attended by the Chinese ambassador Nong Rong, embassy officials and officers from the different services, on which I'll end today's show with the quote by Mr. Nong Rong. The recent meeting of China-Pakistan Joint Committee of Cooperation has been set up an important platform for military collaborations, which will serve effectively for military relations between the two countries. That was what the Chinese ambassador in Pakistan had to say. Of course, our relations with China are strong, have always been strong, and will continue to be so. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segment stories that pertain to us here in Pakistan. Stay safe, follow the SOPs, get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.